This is a presentation about nature and cause of human evolution. It will introduce you to the theoretical framework of dirigiste heurism, the socio-economic system of government that will inevitably replace democracy. The concepts that will be presented to you were originally developed by Perry Bezanis. The collection of essays Perry wrote over the years is hosted at www.condition.org. It is a part of the social network space we're trying to build as the resource for those who want to give their time to advance this material in front of policymakers. These essays have also been formatted into a book that can be printed upon request. Here are the statements that we hold as axioms. Everything we can ever know about the universe we live in is the result of properties of matter. The same properties of matter are responsible for the appearance of life forms and evolution itself in all its consequences. Ponder on this for a moment. If you think these statements are not self-evident, then you will not be receptive to the material I am about to present to you. Still, you might want to stick around just for the fun of it, and maybe at the end of my presentation you will see things differently. The logic behind the inevitability of dirigiste heurism is shown on this slide. Some of the terms may seem familiar to you, some may be completely foreign. First, we will refresh ourselves on classical evolutionary process. That is the process taking place up until the point in time when warm-blooded animals of primitive cerebration developed into primates equipped with deliberative capability. The notion of deliberative capability is most likely something that you have not encountered previously. I will talk about it in detail when I review the etiology of human being and kernel properties of hominid organisms. With the advent of deliberatively capable hominids, the evolutionary process has entered the stage that it is still in now, the time of Homo sapiens. Deliberative capability not only guaranteed Homo sapiens the top spot on the food chain, it allows us to understand why and how we will have to modify the natural pecking order dynamics we have on our hands into a setup that will be aligned with the genetic imperative behind the evolution of any and all life forms. The goal of this presentation is to highlight the inevitability of outcomes that are driven by evolutionary processes behind human condition. It is my high hope that you will share into the significance and urgency of the need to take action now, and will spread this message over your personal and professional networks. There are about 7 billions of humans on Earth now, and there will be around 9 billions by the mid-century. Those who think that they have the right to remain ignorant of the dynamics of the whole organism are making a big mistake. They will be first to go when organism whole rebalances itself into sustainable configuration. Eventually, every human will know his place in the whole, will be equally open to manipulate the whole and be manipulated for the benefit of the whole, because that will be the only choice available to him, to her. The sooner each of us understands this and is prepared to act in line with the course of human evolution, the earlier necessary institutionalizations may begin to take shape. Whether we want it or not, whether we understand it or not, the Earth will settle into dynamic stability. The road to that stability will be vastly different if we start shaping up the process now, or we will wait until we are forced to take action some 40 to 60 years later with double the population and most of the Earth's resources irreversibly corrupt. In biology, life is condition which distinguishes active organism from inorganic matter. Living organisms undergo metabolism, maintain homeostasis, possess a capacity to grow, respond to stimuli, and, through natural selection, adapt to their environment in successive generations. To reflect minimum phenomena required, the following alternative definitions of life have been proposed. Living things are systems that tend to respond to changes in their environment and inside themselves in such a way as to promote their own continuation. Life is a self-sustained chemical system capable of undergoing Darwinian evolution. We use the term genetic imperative to identify this basic property of life form that makes individual organisms go on living and is behind all evolutionary processes that play into viability of the species. Here we use term evolutionary process to encompass all known mechanisms and outcomes of evolution, such as mutation, variation, natural selection, genetic drift, adaptation, coevolution, cooperation, speciation, and extinction. Eco-niche is a term describing the relational position of species or population in its ecosystem. There are typically three successive and overlapping inhabitational stages, attaching a new organism surviving into an eco-niche. Diasporative, that of the new organism proliferating into some essentially new eco-niche whole dynamics. Saturative, the organism overpopulating what the eco-niche can support of it, and organism population receding. Consequently, stable, manifesting dynamic stability of classical eco-niche biologists. The whole of life form evolution is a succession of such invasions and die-offs. Thus, in spite of overlapping evolutionary processes, the classical eco-niche biology of intervertebrates before the appearance of vertebrates was just a precedent to that of merely warm-blooded cerebrating vertebrates before the appearance of eventually deliberating hominids. Food chains and food webs are representation of the predator-prey relationships between species within an ecosystem or habitat. Every known food chain has a base of organisms able to manufacture their own food. A food chain represents a succession of organisms that eat another organism and are in turn eaten themselves. The path along the food chain is one-way flow along which energy travels in the form of food. The origin of life is thought to be around 3,500 million years ago. The necessity to repair genetic damage is one of the leading theories explaining the origins of sexual reproduction around 850 million ago. Bilateral body organization as animal is dated to some 600 million ago, and it permits streamlining, favors the formation of a central nerve center, contributes to cephalization, and promotes actively moving organisms. A warm-blooded animal species is one whose members keep their body temperature at a roughly constant level regardless of the ambient temperature. Warm-blooded animals have much greater stamina than cold-blooded creatures of the same size and build. The cerebrum lies in front of or on top of the brainstem, and in humans is the largest and most well-developed of the 5 major divisions of the brain. The cerebrum is the newest structure in the phylogenetic sense, with mammals having the largest and most well-developed among all species. Primitive cerebration is common to all vertebrates, having a faculty for assimilating primitive eco-niche constituency and interrelationship into primitive, more or less mechanically cerebratable patterns of response. Deliberative capability is registering and assimilating various stimuli into increasingly complex hierarchic cogitation. It is best identified with our relatively open-ended capacity for mentation and eventually reification, making the abstract concrete. It is this property that distinguishes us by our humanity and generation of things human, through which we are able, in effect, to consider these such things and their consequences and implications. With the advent of deliberative capability, classical evolutionary process changed irreversibly because deliberative capable hominid quickly climbed on top of the food chain. In addition to being the subject to the evolutionary process, deliberatively capable hominid became a major component of the evolutionary process towards lesser organisms. Here we highlight how lesser organisms experience evolution along those dimensions of evolutionary process that are profoundly different for Homo sapiens. Lesser organisms are limited to more or less mechanical modes of sustenance and procreation. The space that each organism can invest is limited, and natural selection with lesser organism hierarchies always has a binary outcome, either die-off for an organism or readjustment in viability for all organisms that occupy the same eco-niche and invest more or less the same configuration space. Man's existence, sustenance, and procreation, on the other hand, cannot be separated from continuous intellectualization of the configuration space he invests. This same intellectualization determines how man's configuration space is being continuously changed which in turn causes further deliberation and intellectualization of this new and unknown configuration space. Hence, the configuration space that can be invested by man is essentially of no limits. It expands continuously because evolving deliberative capability is the very property and the driving force behind these expansions. Being on top of food chain means that all other organisms have to adjust while we keep on expanding into our whole Earth's eco-niche environment.